Greetings. My name is Jalandra A. Davis, otherwise known as Mommy Melusine. I am a writer, scholar, educator, dancer, mermaid enthusiast, and all-around creative. Welcome to the Merwomanist podcast, where we talk about Black mermaid lore, fantasy, spirituality, and aquatic culture. Dive in and enjoy. Greetings and welcome back to the Merwomanist podcast with Mommy Melusine. And every episode I say is going to be quick, and that keeps turning out to not be true. But I really am trying to make this a quick episode because I know my son and child are on their way home. And if I could get a podcast episode recorded before they get here, I'll consider myself so productive for today. So I am here with what I hope to be a quick episode about October. Some of us in the mermaid community like to call it Mertober, but in the book community, we like to call it Blackoween. So one of the things that I'm doing, I'm sort of shifting my content strategy right now. If you listen to my last several episodes, you know that I'm really leaning into talking about books. Right now, I am doing an ethnographic study on the Black mermaid community, and I've just found that it's just too difficult for me to do all of the work of coordinating those interviews and the logistics that come along with doing ethnographic research, and also arrange interviews for the podcast, as well as keeping up with, now that the school year has started, my meetings with students, colleagues, etc. Even though I've got a flexible work life right now, I am really trying to focus on my writing and not fill that whole workday up with meetings and interviews. So, because I'm leaning more into talking about books and talking about the intellectual side of my mermaid life and my mermaid pursuits, I have realized that I kind of need to develop my audience and people who want to hear about that. And so, even though I've been circling around and present as a reader in the booktube community for several years, I really haven't tried to really engage in it. When there are readathons and things that are happening, I do read along. I try to read a couple of the group reads, but I've never actually actively attempted to participate in any of these readathons because the folks on booktube, y'all be reading fast, right? And I actually don't, for someone who reads for a living, I actually don't read that quickly. It does take me some time. And so I have decided this year to be the first year and the first month that I am going to actively participate in Blackoween. Blackoween is a readathon that is founded by Loc'D Booktician, who is one of my favorite booktubers, and I will put her information in the show notes. So she created this readathon to focus on Black crime, mystery, and horror fiction. I've gotten a lot of great thriller recommendations from a lot of the Black booktubers. I feel are like heavier into fantasy and science fiction. And so it's just nice to find some people who are into thrillers and horror because that's just one of my favorite genres right now. I've always liked thrillers and horror, but I just find myself getting more into it. Maybe because some of my fantasy reads haven't really been hitting, but that's another conversation that I've had on this podcast a few times before. So it's a really creative readathon. I actually had to watch the launch video for Blackoween quite a few times before I really understood how it works. And this first time that I'm participating, I'm not going to really follow all the rules. I'm mainly using this readathon to connect with people in the book community and to give myself some external accountability for getting through some of the things that are kind of already on my TBR, things that I need to read, or even revisit some things that I have read in order to review them because I've started a Goodreads account as well, and I'm actively reviewing over there if you want to check it out. So, I am going to talk about Blackoween for a second, and I'm going to also talk about some things, maybe not so much within the scope of the specific Blackoween challenges that I want to wrap up this month as part of my horror month, because every October and usually into November, I do focus on horror on the podcast. So, Like the Petition has a map called Tula's Parish, and this is a fictional universe that she created based on New Orleans with different locations that correspond to different themes that you focus on in the challenge. If you are playing and participating properly, you would pick one of 3 reading levels, which correspond to the number of prompts in each of those locations that you would do. And you would spin a dice to see which number of the prompts that you would follow for each of the locations. I'm not doing all that. Who has time? Because I want to use this for accountability for some things that are already on my list to read, I'm just picking the prompts from each location that I want to do, and I'm just picking a few themes. So the themes are, and I'll put a link to where you can purchase the map on Etsy. I don't want to give out the map because like the Booktician does sell it. I did purchase one. So I'll put the link where you could get a map. It's only $5. And also I'll put a link to her video where she explains everything. So the locations are Bayou Haunted House. So this theme is haunted houses, haunted structures, haunted physical structures or locations of some kind. Saint Germain's graveyard, which is of the night. So I take this to mean cemeteries, graveyards, zombies, maybe vampires, right? That's the kind of stuff you're reading for Saint Germain's graveyard. Noir Apothecary, and this is for cozy mysteries. So cozy mysteries are mysteries that aren't as scary, as gory. I want to compare it to things, but this isn't a genre I read in a lot, so I don't even know what to compare it to. But mysteries for people who maybe aren't as heavy into death and like darkness and twisted psychological themes. I won't be doing that one because I'm very into all of that. Ruby's Crew Park, and this is for children's and middle grade horror fiction. Joe's Library, and this, I don't know what I will call the theme of this one, but there are more than one prompts within this one that references male authors. So crime fiction, historical fiction, and men, the male authors. So many of these people in the Booktube community, a lot of women and femme folks in the Booktube community. This is to encourage people to also read male authors. Laissez-faire streetcar, and this is for something involving time. So it includes like Black classics. And I don't know that the classics necessarily have to be horror. Certainly, there are horror books that are older. Being 40 years old, I kind of shudder to think what people think of when they think old and classic. To me, it is before the 20th century, or maybe like the first half of the 20th century. I have seen people online say that a classic can be from like the 1990s, which hurts my feelings. I do not think that's a classic. I think you've got to be pre-1950 for it to be a classic. But Laissez-Free Streetcar includes classics and anything involving time or anything involving travel. And Shishi's Kitchen, and Shishi's Kitchen is for romance. But all of the themes, all of the locations do need to have horror, mystery, thriller, or some kind of suspense or crime fiction as the primary genre, with maybe other genres, other things thrown in, but that horror, mystery, suspense, crime need to be the primary genre. So I've decided that for the readathon, I did not write down the reader levels, so I can't tell you that. Watch Loc'D Booktician's video. My goal is just to read as many things within the locations that I choose as I can, and as many locations as I can get to. But there are certain ones that I am prioritizing because I am already aware of books that are on my list to either finish, revisit, or read for the first time entirely. And so those are Bayou Haunted House. Bayou Haunted House includes, each location includes 6 prompts. Bayou Haunted House includes a possession story, a story where ghosts reside over the house, a story where there's a haunted house set in the South, a house with a state in the title, one with a medium or a spiritual leader, and then every location has a free space. So I am going to read the Reformatory, which fits a lot of these prompts. Now, there are rules in the readathon about how many books you can overlap. Again, don't remember those rules. And because I just feel like I'm kind of doing it my own way, I'm just going to use one thing for as many prompts as I can. But when I log in on the readathon, I'm just going to log in what I think is the best fitting prompt. So for Bayou Haunted House, I plan to finish House of Cotton. House of Cotton is a very, very genre bending. This is the cover. I'm reading this on audiobook. So House of Cotton. It's a very genre bending book. I think that there's definitely horror elements. It's about a young woman, a young mixed race Black woman in the South. Her grandmother dies, who she was extremely close to, and she goes to work for a funeral home, and this really strange white man who basically employs her to dress up. And I guess something about her mixed raceness, he feels like she's especially appropriate for this, but he employs her to dress up and pretend to be the relatives of who have passed on of people. The writing is beautiful. The atmosphere is very gothic. I would say this is very gothic, and I love, like, a contemporary gothic by a Black author. I love the idea of that, and the writing is beautiful. When I did the little sample of the prologue, I was really excited to read the book. I just felt like the plot just really wasn't moving forward, wasn't going anywhere, and I was listening it to on an audiobook. It could be a lot harder for me to get through something on audiobook that's not moving forward for me. So I stopped reading it like 3 hours before the end of the book. So I spent my little Kindle Audible credit on that book. So I will be going back and finishing that one as part of Bayou Haunted House. Also, I will be finally be reading The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. I do not have a copy of that yet. I like to get my Black books from Black booksellers, so I'm waiting for that one. And I've been wanting to read it for a long time. I know it's going to be dark. I know it's going to be heavy. I know it's going to be hard. It's based on the true story of Black boys who were abused and murdered within these reformatories in the South in the Jim Crow era, I believe, or both possibly earlier. I could be wrong about that. I read another book, Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, based on this idea, and language for a second fucked me up. I'm sorry. As a mother of a young son, to see these Black children being treated this way, it was a good book, amazing book, but I haven't wanted to revisit that subject. But I love Tananarive Due. She's one of probably my top 3 favorite authors. I've read all of her books, and I don't wanna stop now. So I'll be doing The Reformatory, which is also one of the group reads for Bayou Haunted House, which will be good because maybe I'll have a chance to talk about it with folks. Delicious Monsters is another one I've been hearing about. This is another new release, and I don't know, man, y'all starting to make me skeptical of these new releases, but I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about doing Delicious Monsters as well. I don't know if I'm gonna do Saint Tremaine's Graveyard. Oh, Saint Tremaine's Graveyard. I think I am gonna do Saint Tremaine's Graveyard. I'm gonna use that as an opportunity to finish another book that I have on Audible, which is It Waits in the For Actually, no, I've read this one already, and I already locked this one in because October has started. It Waits in the Forest by Sarah Daas. So that is one that I actually have already read. And it covers 2 of the prompts. I think a book where a deal is made and a murder with multiple POVs. Also ancestral knowledge, it covers that too. So I might just look for one more for that location. I'm not doing Nora Apothecary. I'm not gonna do Ruby's Crew Park. There's just not really anything on my radar that I wanna cover. Joe's Library, I might find something for that. Joe's Library is historical reference, crime fiction, book by a Black man, book with musical elements. I just read Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, which is a thriller, which is heavily inspired by the R. Kelly story. And I think that's so pertinent and relevant now, looking at everything that's happening with Diddy and just a lot of folks in the music industry who have been exposed for these kinds of crimes. So, yeah, I will Grown, I think, fits into this one. Book by a Black man. I'm always reading these Brandon Massey thrillers. They're pretty fast reads, easy to get through. So I'll probably throw a Brandon Massey on there and a book written by an Indigenous man. I've been wanting to do No Good Indian by, is it Stephen Graham? Hope I have that right. I've been wanting to read that for a long time. It's another one that I've heard is really heavy. Well, not heavy, but it's pretty gory. And so, but I've been wanting to read that for a long time. I've heard it's really, really good. I also have another book by him called The Final Girl. So maybe I'll read those. Crime fiction, most of Brandon Massey's books I think will qualify as crime fiction, so I should be able to double up that prompt. Laissez-faire Street Scar, that's the one with classics, time jumps. I would love to do something there. Nothing is jumping out to me in my head that fits those prompts, and I really want to focus on books that are already on my radar. So I'm going to think about that one, possibly come back to it because I do want to read some more classics. Since I have been working primarily in contemporary fiction in my writing and my teaching, since I started my 10-year line job, I haven't been reading as much older fiction. And I think it's important to read older fiction and read classics. So I might come back to that one, but right now I don't have any plans for that location. And Shishi's Kitchen. Shishi's Kitchen is romance, but I guess it's supposed to be romance kind of mixed with horror, or maybe you could just do romance. I'm not sure. I'm just getting into really, really trying to do these readathons, so the rules are not always clear to me. But I have one for this location that I'm so excited to talk about. I've already read it. I haven't logged it yet, but that is Midnight Rooms by Donyae Coles. This is a new release. So, which I was surprised by because all the richness and depth I've been talking about that I've been missing out of newer books, it's there. It is a Gothic novel set, I believe, in the 19th century. We have a biracial Black protagonist in England who is a ward of her father's family who is married off to this really strange man and goes home to his family horrible haunted gothic mansion, and it's very Jane Eyre vibes. It has like all of those vibes of an older gothic novel, but it's contemporary spice and character complexity. So I think that all the erotica in the book definitely would fit it into spicy, paranormal. It's not really paranormal, but I would think it would fit it into the romance category. So I'm definitely going to do that one. And for spicy paranormal written by a woman, I'm going to do Siren's Test, which is the second book in the Siren series by Jessica Cage. Are these books horror? I don't know that I would say these books are horror as the first category. I think you would probably call these, I read Siren's Call already last year. I think you would probably call these like paranormal, erotica, paranormal romance with some horror elements. But I think the Shishi's Kitchen location is a little bit more flexible. So I'm definitely going to do Siren's Test and Midnight Rooms. Well, Midnight Rooms I already did, and Siren's Test. Maybe I'll see if I could try to find one more. Joplin's Ghost would be amazing because it kind of fits spooky historical romance, and it fits time jumps in Laissez-faire Streetcar, and it fits music in Joe's library. So that's a recommendation for anyone who's looking for books, but I think I read that too long ago to count it for this readathon. So those are the books I'm doing specifically as part of Blackoween, again, hosted by Loc'D Booktician. But there are also some other horror things that I want to wrap up this month. The first is Sycorax's Daughters by Kinitra Brooks. And this is an incredible anthology of Black women's horror. It's the first anthology purely of horror by Black women that I know of. It doesn't mean it's the very first. It's the first that I know of. I have read the introduction. I've read about half the stories, I think. But as you can see, it's pretty thick. And usually when I read anthologies, I do tend to skip around to what I'm most interested in. So I want to use this month as an opportunity to finish that out and read all of the stories. This one I actually read already. It is the Black Girl Survives in this one, which is another horror anthology, Black women's horror anthology, edited by Desiree Evans and Saracica. So I'm so sorry. They've got this funny font, so it's not just because I can't say her name. Saracica. I will put the phonetic spelling in the show notes. I'm so sorry about that. With a name like Jalandra, I know how it is to have people constantly messing up your name, and I hate doing that to other people. But yeah, I read this one already. I actually read it maybe last month or so, but hey, I'm going to put it in my Blackoween, but I will be revisiting it and reviewing it because I kind of want to look at it alongside Sycorax's Daughters, which I think is one of the books that kind of paved the way for this one to exist. And I'm going to be finishing Out There Screaming. I don't have the original cover anymore, but Out There Screaming, edited by Jordan Peele. It's got a lot of my favorite writers in this one. So I'm just going to use this month as an opportunity to finish this out. But it's got stories by N.K. Jemisin, Nilo Hopkinson, like a lot of my favorite writers. The curation and the selection process for this one, I think is like very precise. So I think it's going to be a really strong collection. So that's what I'll be doing for the month of October. I will at some point interrupt horror to talk about the election because it is very important. And I think there are issues that mermaids should be paying attention to. So I kind of want to do an episode that maybe focuses around the earth, the waters, right? What direction should you go in if that's what you want to protect? So I still have a lot of research to do for that, but I know I want to put that out this month. But aside from that, we'll just be doing horror. And I'll probably be taking horror into November. So that is my Blackoween TBR, and I look forward to talking with you next time. You have just listened to the Merwomanist podcast with Mommy Melusine. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, I would love 5 stars, and subscribe for future episodes. You can follow me on Instagram at Mommy, that's MAMI, _Melusine, or at Merwomanist Podcast, on LinkedIn at Jalandra Davis, or my website, jalandradavis.com. Wishing you love and laughter and hoping to see you swim this way again.